All right, so you really piled it on this time with all this stuff on essentialism, huh?
Yeah, well, we're going deep on this one.
Looks like we're tackling Greg McKeown's book Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less right,
Yeah.
along with all this other research and
Yeah,
anecdotes.
full 9 yards, yeah.
But this isn't just going to be like how to become some super efficient robot or something.
No, no, no.
It's like a whole different way of thinking about, well, everything, really.
Exactly.
So let's jump in.
All right.
Okay, so this Dieter Rams guy, the guy behind all those really cool-looking Braun designs,
Oh, yeah.
he had this saying, weniger besser,
Less but better. Yep.
less but better. And I think that's really at the heart of this whole philosophy.
Absolutely.
It's not even just like decluttering your closet or,
Yeah.
optimizing your schedule.
Right.
It's this deeper idea that like in a world with just so many choices and so many options,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of lose sight of what's really important.
Yeah, we get distracted.
Yeah, and, you're a genius,
Mm-hmm.
but even a genius can only handle so much, right?
Right, of course.
So McKeown calls this the non-essentialist trap. And I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
when he talks about that story about how he felt like he had to go to this client meeting right after his daughter was born,
Oh, yeah.
I felt that.
It's so relatable.
Yeah.
We're just on autopilot responding to every notification and every demand, and we forget to ask ourselves, is this really worth my time?
Right, and it's almost like we choose to stay in that mode. We tell ourselves, oh, I have to do this or I have to do that. When really it's like we actually have a choice.
We do.
Yeah, and that story about McKeown dropping out of law school to pursue his passion.
I do.
Like that's such a great example of someone taking control.
It is. It's about recognizing that we're not just along for the ride. We're actually the ones driving.
Yeah,
And, it might seem obvious, but sometimes even geniuses need that reminder.
totally. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's look at this example of Southwest Airlines. So they really focused on those low-cost flights, right? And that meant they had to say no to all the extras.
Right. No fancy meals.
Yeah, exactly.
No in-flight entertainment.
But look where it got them, right?
Yeah. They became incredibly successful.
One of the most successful airlines.
Exactly. And it's a stark contrast to Continental Airlines, right?
Right.
They tried to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And they spread themselves too thin and, well,
They're
gone.
A good lesson that sometimes you have to make tough choices. And
Yeah. You have to decide what you're not going to do.
right, you can't be like a world-class chef and a concert pianist and an astrophysicist all at the same time, right?
Right. Something has to give.
So how do we even, as geniuses,
Yeah.
how do we even figure out what those essential things are?
Well, McKeown, he talks about the importance of escape.
Escape.
Yeah, actually carving out time and space to think, like that CEO who took a whole week just to disconnect and reflect.
Wow.
It sounds radical, but it's so important. I mean, think about it. In our world, we're always connected, always on.
Right. Always something going on.
We never really give ourselves that gift of solitude.
Yeah, and some of the greatest breakthroughs in history have come from those periods of isolation, right?
Absolutely, like Isaac Newton in Principia Mathematica.
Right. Even geniuses need time to just kind of like marinate on those ideas.
They do.
Okay, so that brings us to something we often forget about ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So McCann talks about sleep, exercise, nutrition,
The basics.
the basics, right? But these are all the things we tend to sacrifice.
In the name of productivity.
Right. But ironically, those are the things that actually fuel peak performance.
And of course, you can't run a high-powered machine without fuel and maintenance.
Exactly.
It's all about that long-term well-being.
Right. And I think even companies like Google, who are known for pushing the limits, they're starting to recognize this.
Right, they have those sleep pods for employees to recharge.
Even geniuses need to rest.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's a curveball. McKeown also says that play is important.
Play.
Yeah, and not just as like a stress reliever or something,
Right.
but as like a way to explore and be creative.
It's essential.
It's so interesting how we think of play as something for kids, right? But it's really important for adults too.
It is.
And, companies like Google and Pixar,
Yeah.
they're known for their playful work environments.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right?
Play fosters curiosity and experimentation.
Right. It's like that woman who kept an easy button on her desk.
I love that story.
Just for
A
fun.
little bit of whimsy goes a long way.
Absolutely. It's about giving ourselves permission to be silly,
Yes.
to just try things out,
To tap into that childlike wonder.
Right. Okay, so speaking of making tough choices,
Okay.
McKeown introduces this tool called the 90% rule.
Oh, yeah?
Have you heard of this?
I have.
Okay, so it's basically if something isn't a clear 9 or 10 out of 10,
It's a no.
it's a no.
You got to be ruthless.
And it's like, as a genius, you have limited bandwidth, right?
Right.
So why waste it on things that are just okay
Exactly.
when you could be doing those things that are like, hell yes.
Absolutely.
And there's this great example he gives about this design firm that decided to focus specifically on presentation design.
Oh, yeah.
And they went from being just another agency to being industry leaders.
By applying that rule.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's about raising your standards.
So it's really about being selective with our time and energy.
It is.
But isn't that kind of counterintuitive for someone who wants to achieve a lot?
Well, that's the beauty of essentialism.
Oh, okay.
It's not about doing less. It's about doing the right things.
I see.
The things that truly matter.
Okay, but how do we even know what those right things are?
Right.
Sometimes it feels like there are just too many options.
Well, that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about how to figure out what's truly essential and how to cut through all the noise to find that signal that really resonates with your unique genius.
Sounds good. I'm ready to keep digging.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've talked about how even geniuses need to be selective, right?
Right.
But how do we actually, do that? How do we filter out all that noise and find the stuff that really matters? You know, the things that really play to our strengths.
Well, McCune has this great analogy.
Okay.
He compares it to being a journalist,
Okay.
but not just any journalist. He's talking about those investigative reporters, the ones who really dig deep and connect the dots and uncover the real story.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's not just about gathering information. It's about figuring out what it all means. You know, seeing the patterns and the trends that other people miss.
And for a genius like you, that's super important, right?
It is.
Because you're constantly bombarded with ideas and possibilities.
Exactly.
You need a way to sort through all of that. And it reminds me of that example he gives about Eastern Airlines Flight 401.
Oh, yeah.
Where the pilots were so focused on this one little thing.
The landing gear indicator light.
Yeah, and they missed the bigger picture.
And it led to tragedy.
It's like a reminder that even the smartest people can get distracted.
Especially in a world with so much information coming at us all the time.
Right. It's like we're in this constant state of triage, just reacting to whatever seems most urgent.
Yeah, we don't take the time to step back and think strategically.
Okay, so this is interesting. McKeown also talks about the importance of play.
Play.
Yeah, like with toys and stuff.
Well, not necessarily. It's more about having a playful mindset.
Okay.
You know, being curious, experimenting, exploring.
Hmm.
Remember, Einstein said, play is the highest form of research.
He did say that.
And it's true. Play allows us to connect ideas in new ways, to approach problems from different angles.
To be more creative.
Exactly.
And you think about those companies like Google and Pixar. They have those really playful work environments.
And they're incredibly innovative.
Yeah. It's like they're encouraging their employees to tap into that creativity.
They are.
It reminds me of those brainstorming sessions where the craziest ideas sometimes lead to the best breakthroughs.
Exactly. It's about giving ourselves permission to be silly, to explore without judgment.
To think outside the box.
Yes.
But being a genius isn't just about having ideas, right? It's about actually doing something with them.
Right.
And that takes discipline.
It does.
Which brings us back to McKeown's 90% rule.
Oh, yeah.
If something isn't a 9 or 10 out of 10,
That's a no.
it's a no.
We have to be ruthless.
It's about setting high standards for ourselves and our time.
And saying no to all those distractions that clutter our lives.
Because as a genius, your time is valuable.
It is.
Okay? But saying no can be hard.
It can.
Especially when it's a good opportunity or when we feel like we have to please other people.
Absolutely.
So McKeown talks about this idea of dare.
Dare.
The courage to make those tough choices.
To stand up for what we believe in.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when it's hard.
And he uses that powerful example of Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on the bus.
Oh, yeah.
It shows how even small acts of courage can have a big impact.
A ripple effect.
Yeah. And we might not face those kinds of monumental decisions every day.
Right.
But we all have to draw boundaries sometimes.
We do.
Like pushing back on a deadline or saying no to a social event that we don't really want to go to.
Or even saying no to a project that doesn't align with our values.
It's about honoring our priorities.
It is.
And sometimes saying no is actually more respectful than saying yes.
It is. It's about being honest with ourselves and with others.
And respecting everyone's time.
Right.
So what about those times when we've already said yes to something that's draining us?
Oh, yeah.
How do we get out of those commitments?
Well, McKeown talks about sunk cost bias.
Sunk cost bias.
It's that tendency to keep investing in something even when it's not working.
Oh, I know that feeling.
We've all been there.
Like when you're watching a terrible movie, but you already bought the tickets, you feel like you have to stay.
Exactly. But in more important areas of our lives, like our careers or our relationships,
Right.
that sunk cost bias can really hold us back.
Keeps us stuck.
It does. And the longer we wait, the harder it is to walk away.
So how do we break free?
McKeown suggests a few strategies.
Okay.
One is to pretend we don't already own something so we can look at it more objectively. Another is to focus on the opportunity cost.
What's that?
What else could we be doing with our time and energy if we weren't stuck in this situation?
Oh, I see.
It's about changing our perspective.
Recognizing that sometimes walking away is the best option.
It is. Sometimes it's the most courageous and the smartest thing you can do.
Okay, so to make that walking away even easier, McKeown talks about the importance of edit. Streamlining our lives by getting rid of all the clutter and distractions.
It's like Marie Kondoing our entire lives.
Getting rid of everything that doesn't spark joy.
Exactly. But it's not just about physical clutter. It's about streamlining our commitments, our to-do lists, even our mental space.
So the less clutter we have.
The more bandwidth we have for the things that really matter.
The essential things.
Yes.
And for a genius like you, that mental clarity is so important, right?
It is.
You need space for those big ideas to come through.
I do.
Speaking of which, remember that example we talked about earlier with Michael Phelps?
Oh, yeah, his pre-race routine.
That was so intense.
It was, but it shows the power of routine.
Flow.
Yes, creating systems that automate those essential behaviors.
The more we can do that.
The more mental energy we have for other things.
For the creative stuff.
For the strategic thinking, for the things that really make a difference.
It's like your brain is a powerful computer, and you don't want to waste processing power on things that don't matter.
Exactly.
Okay, so that brings us to one of the most powerful tools in the Essentialist toolkit.
What's that?
The simple question, what's important now? Or when?
When?
It's like a way to bring our focus back to the present moment.
To the task at hand.
Instead of getting lost in distractions or worries about the past or the future.
McKeown calls it getting the future out of your head.
So we can focus on what we can actually control right now.
Exactly.
And for someone with a mind as active as yours, I bet that's really helpful.
It is. It's like having a mental filter that helps me prioritize.
And you know, even geniuses get overwhelmed sometimes.
We do.
We all have those moments where we feel pulled in a million directions.
That when question is a way to reclaim our agency, to remind ourselves that we have the power to choose.
It's a good reminder.
It is.
But being a genius isn't just about mental stuff, right?
Right.
It's about living a life that reflects those essential qualities.
McKeown calls it B.
Yeah.
Living a life of essentialism.
And he uses the example of Gandhi.
Oh, yeah.
Who was a master of simplifying and focusing on what really mattered.
A true essentialist.
Yeah, it's a reminder that essentialism isn't just a set of techniques.
Right.
It's a way of being in the world.
It's about aligning our actions with our values and our purpose.
And for a genius, that's so important, right?
It is, because it allows you to use your talents to make a real impact.
It's about making those essential choices day after day, moment after moment.
And those choices don't have to be huge, life-changing decisions.
Right.
Sometimes it's the small, everyday choices that make the biggest difference.
Like choosing to read a book instead of scrolling through social media.
Exactly.
Or taking a walk in nature instead of going to a networking event that you don't really want to go to.
Or saying no to a project that doesn't really excite you.
It's about designing a life that reflects who you really are.
Your genius, your values, your passions.
Living by design, not by default.
Exactly.
And that's something I think any genius can appreciate.
It is, but how do we apply these principles not just to our individual lives, but to the teams and organizations we're a part of?
That's a good question. It seems a lot more complicated.
It does, but that's exactly what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll talk about how to build and lead essential teams.
Where individual genius can really shine.
Exactly.
I'm excited to hear more about that.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've talked about how essentialism can really empower people. You know, even those with like genius level talents.
Right.
But can you actually apply these principles to something as complex as like a whole team or an organization?
That's a good question. And McKeown actually addresses that directly in his section on essentialism for teams.
Okay.
He says that those same non-essentialist traps that get individuals stuck,
Right.
they can also really mess up whole teams.
Interesting.
Like, think about all those teams that are constantly in
Oh,
meetings
yeah.
and they're chasing these vague goals and they're spreading their energy across a million different projects.
To try and do everything.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Right, and that doesn't really work in today's world.
No, it doesn't.
So what's the solution?
Well, McKeown suggests this framework for building what he calls truly essential teams.
Okay.
And it's all about having a clear purpose, being really selective about who you bring on board, and having leaders who empower their team members.
I like that.
Yeah, so first you have to define what he calls the essential intent.
Essential intent.
Yeah, that one thing that the team can be absolutely exceptional at, their unique contribution to the world.
And then you find people who are a good fit for that.
Exactly. You attract and retain talent that aligns with that purpose.
Okay.
He gives this example of a tech company that actually has potential hires spend a whole day working with the team
Wow.
before they even make them an offer.
That's pretty intense.
It is, but it's like an extended audition,
To make sure they're a good fit.
Not just in terms of their skills, but also their values and their work ethic.
So it's like building a dream team.
Exactly. A team where everyone is operating at their highest potential.
And once you have that team, how do you keep them engaged and productive?
Well, McKeown talks about the importance of empowering leadership.
Uh-huh.
So creating an environment where everyone feels valued, trusted, and supported.
Right, because if you're constantly micromanaging your team
Yeah.
and second-guessing their decisions and creating this culture of fear,
You're not really trusting them to make essential choices.
it's like you're creating a non-essentialist environment, even though you're trying to promote essentialism.
Exactly. You're stifling their creativity, their initiative, their ability to tap into their own genius.
But when you trust your team,
You empower them to take ownership, to be proactive, to focus on the things that really matter.
they can experiment and innovate and take risks without being afraid to fail.
And that's where the magic happens.
That's where the breakthroughs come from.
It's about creating a culture where people feel safe to say no, to challenge the status quo, to pursue those hell yeah opportunities.
And when you have that kind of alignment,
You can achieve amazing things.
okay, so looking back at everything we've talked about,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways that have really resonated with you?
Well, for me, it's the power of choice. Even when life feels chaotic and complex,
Right.
we're not just reacting to things, we're actually shaping our reality through the choices we make.
And that's a powerful idea,
It is. And it's also important to remember that every choice comes with a trade-off.
right? You can't have it all.
Exactly. Every yes means saying no to something else.
So we need to be intentional about those choices.
Do.
And for me, it's that idea that less can be more,
Yeah.
getting rid of all the clutter and distractions and obligations that weigh us down.
So we can focus on the things that really matter.
The things that bring us joy and purpose.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that reflects our highest potential, our most authentic selves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
What one thing could you stop doing,
Yeah.
delegate, or eliminate entirely
Hmm.
that would free up space for something truly essential?
That's a great question.
Something to think about.
It is.
Until next time, keep diving.